Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. The session is titled, Choosing the Middle East Technology Leap. My name is Sumitra Datta. I'm professor at INSEAD, and it's my pleasure to be able to moderate this panel. We have a fairly large and very impressive panel, and that is quite appropriate because the topic is equally large and important. Now, I'll briefly introduce the panel members, make a few introductory remarks, and then we will sort of get into the mechanics of the discussion with our panel members. So on my immediate left, we have Peter Brun, who is the Senior Vice President of Vestas Wind Systems in Denmark. To his left is Jae-Won, who is the Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of SK Holdings from the Republic of Korea. To his left, we have Karim Kawar, who is the President of the Kawar Group from Jordan. And to his left, we have Naguib Sawiris, who is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Orascom Telecom Holding from Egypt. And to his left, we have Williem Elfrink, who is the Chief Globalization Officer and Executive Vice President of Cisco Services from Cisco Systems in India. And to his left, we have Mohammad Omran, who is the Chairman of Etisalat from the UAE. And last but not least, we have Ahmed El-Magharbrid, who is a Professor and Director of Discovery Park in Purdue University. So we've got a very impressive and large panel, and the topic really is around technology and leaping forward with technology. Now, this topic is a very important and relevant one today because in the midst of all this talk about a crisis, certainly the role of innovation has become only more important. Today, innovation is the only way that we know we can come out of the crisis. We cannot cut our costs and come out of the crisis. We have to innovate to come out of the crisis. Equally well, there are some very important global problems ahead of us. The environment, the energy, other kinds of very important issues. And technology will play a very important role in solving these global challenges. The Middle East has always been a very important domain and region for innovation. Certainly in the history, it has been a region where a lot of innovations in science and technology, astronomy, has come from this region. Today, we are well aware that the region has several challenges in terms of meeting and facing up to global competition in science and technology, and this panel will provide us a very appropriate forum to discuss what are these challenges, how can we in fact not just be a follower, but a leader in this space, and how can the Middle East in particular help shape the world's future with technology-based innovation. Now, I think in a number of sessions, people have talked about rethinking various aspects of the globe today, of the world governance, of a number of aspects of how we do business. And today, probably, this panel affords us a chance to rethink about how we should innovate with technology, not just for the sake of technology, but just because this is a very important part of leapfrogging and creating a better economic climate for ourselves, and also helping the world achieve a better future. Now, I would like to begin by perhaps requesting Naguib Sawiris to kick off the discussion and give us a perspective in terms of how he feels some of these issues apply to the region. Naguib?
Thank you. To push a button? Oh, no. I think for us in this part of the world, we need to ask ourselves the question is, what do we really need most? Because if we just try and adapt whatever has been done in the West and so on, there's a feeling between the population that this is a luxury, and that ICT is sometimes even a luxury and so on, which is completely wrong. So if we head with the technology and focus on the main issues we have in this part of the world, then I think this is the right way to start. So what are the main issues? I would say the most important one is education. We're lagging behind in our educational schemes, and we're talking since years, and even in these forums year after year, how we modernize our education, and then at least for Egypt, we still have the same curriculums that I used to have 30 years ago. I still look at my kids, and they're still reading the same stupid books that I had when I was young, you know. So the second point is poverty and poverty fighting and lack of jobs. This is a main point today, and it's related to the third point. So how can we provide jobs? How can we grow our economies? And what can ICT do to enable that? And what can a small mobile phone do in that effect, you know? And because poverty and lack of jobs and so on brings us to the third point, which is the third problem I perceive as one of the biggest problems too in our part of the world, and this is the rising religious fanaticism. And it is a very dangerous point, and I believe that also there is a contribution that could be done through even ICT or the mobile phone in addition to the fact about related to that point is also the democratization process. So I also believe that this small handset, the phone, the mobile phone, is the biggest tool. And if you might laugh, but just to make a final example, because we're restricted to the 3 minutes, is in Egypt now, the best mode of creating a good demonstration is Facebook. So the guys, they all interact through Facebook, agree where to meet, and suddenly you have the largest demonstration in Egypt, you know, which would have been impossible in the past because of lack of communication. Now the government, what can they do? Block up Facebook, you know, and block the site. So I think for us, really, we should look at it from that perspective. What is really needed from our point of view in that region, and not whatever else is going around, you know.
Thank you very much. And you raised three very important issues, and I'd love to pick up on all three of them, but let me just pick up on one of them, because you operate in many markets which are relatively, let's say, underdeveloped or emerging. And you know, many people would today say that one of the beauty of mobile telecoms and mobile applications is that in many cases, it is removing the embarrassment of illiteracy. It's giving a medium for even illiterate farmers and workers to be able to use and access technology and to interface with the information world. What do you see happening in mobile actually driving change in this space?
Well, I can give you a very current example. When the Pakistani army decided to finally do the right thing and go and take a stand against the Taliban in the north of Pakistan, the result was that 400,000 people had to leave their homes and were thrown out into the nowhere, no place to stay, no food, and no way to contact anything of the happening. And the fact that Mobilink, our mobile company, is exactly everywhere, and we have our point of sales, and the fact that we are very keen to help also in that specific country, we moved in and we created facilities, we created communication, we provided a point of contact, we provided phones, and that has done an immense, and we started a campaign on the phones too, how to help and how to provide a place, temporary relief areas, health-wise, and so on. So is a fact that this mobile tool today is becoming a very, very intelligent tool if you know how to use it intelligently and you have a conscience with it, you know.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll touch upon mobile in more depth in the discussion going forward. And let me turn now to Mohammad. Mohammad, you run a very large operator also in this space in multiple countries, actually. So what's your perspective in terms of how the Middle East can use perhaps this technology area to leapfrog?
Thank you very much. In fact, when I thought about the topic of decision, one of the important issue is education. And all of us are talking about education because it is a major aspect for the Middle East to join the world and to be very active. And when I talk about education, I talk that there are several stakeholders has to participate in moving education to the next level. It is the government, it is the society at large, but also it is telecom operator. And I want to give some example what thing we are doing in order to help moving the education to the next stage. One of the important things we have done in UAE is participating with Khalifa University to establish a network called Ankabut. Ankabut means spider in Arabic. And the main aim for that one is to connect all the universities and higher education with very high speed internet at 10 gigabit per second, internally and externally. So they can be able to, they will be able to connect with the universities in the world. You know that in the Middle East, we have shortage in certain specialization. And the only way to have that one is to have it remotely using very high speed interconnection between the university in UAE and the rest of the world. That is not the only one, which is the example I am talking about. But also we are talking, or we are already working with Ministry of Education to connect all schools in UAE with very high speed fiber connectivity. We have a plan in UAE by Etisalat to connect every home, every office with fiber optics, 90% of the houses and the offices by 2011. And part of that is to connect all schools. We are starting this year by connecting 70 schools with very high speed interconnection. In that one, we are working with other technical partners, such as Cisco, where we are offering total solution to those schools with other partners as well. On the other side, one of the important things which we lack in our university is research. And we as Etisalat working with universities again to establish a research institute or research units. Again with Khalifa University, we established with BT another research unit in UAE, now directly maybe initially for telecom, but also for many other solutions out of the UAE. So the main aim, what I want to say, two elements. Number one, that it is very important to work in education and to connect the schools and university with very high speed internet. And the other one is to work with other stakeholders like government and other society members in order to offer or to help the education system to go to the next step.
You know, it's very interesting. The session title is Choosing the Next Middle East Technology Leap, and almost invariably the discussion comes back to the people side, the soft side, the education elements. And I'm going to come to you in a second, Ahmed, on that. But let me pose another follow-up question to you, Mohammad, in terms of, you heard Naguib say about the textbooks being the same 30 years ago. And just to give you some reassurance, my daughter went through schooling in France, and it isn't much better in France. So in some sense, why is this happening? I mean, what is not changing out here?
Everyone realizing that the way which is done, that means earlier in education and in the region, does not give us result, and we are backward instead of moving forward. So everyone is realizing that there is a need for change. And I am lucky that in UAE that the government and the other society are realizing that there is a need to move. But this is also, in addition to that, you need to enable every customer or every user. And I think using mobile network to offer the customer with high-speed internet or student and teachers is the only way in order to move to the next step.
Yeah, but you can provide high-speed internet. What are the textbooks and the teachers?
No, this is the media. Without the media, you will not be able to offer. How can I offer education in remote areas with the best education? The only way is using media to telepresence the teacher from one city to another or from one country to another.
Okay. I think we have had two perspectives from the region, and it might be interesting to get some perspectives from outside the region. And maybe I would first go to Ahmed, because you are sort of touching upon, I guess you have interesting links and origins from the region. At the same time, you have a background in technology, and you're also the director of one of the most important science parks in the US. So can you give us your perspective in terms of how you see the development in this area?
What I hear here is music to my ears. Everybody says how education is important and how we're going to do everything using ICT. So let me tell you what we have done. What I'm going to do in my 2 to 3 minutes is to take it one notch lower, try to go into a little bit more detail. The objective of Discovery Park, of the Cyber Center in Discovery Park, is to use computing technology to enable science and engineering. So traditionally, we've used computing to enhance how we do science and engineering. That is, a scientist, a biologist, or a chemist, an engineer, a chemical engineer, whatever, does their experiments and then goes to the computer, enters their information, or runs their simulations. What we see as the main enabler for science and engineering progress today is using computing as an enabler and as an enhancer. What do I mean by that? I mean is a lot of science and engineering today is done in silico, is done inside the computer. A lot of systems biology, for example, all science is done on the computer itself. So these are a lot of the hub technologies. So for example, what I mean by cyber infrastructure, what we do in the Cyber Center, cyber infrastructure is we use the hub technologies, we use computing, we use storage and databases, applications, all aspects of cyber infrastructure to enable scientists to make the next discovery. We believe that the next discovery is not going to come from a wet lab. The next discovery, the next Nobel Prize, is going to be won in a data center. And this is the exciting thing. What does this let us do? This let us work on big science. And this is what I see a leap or a major leap for our region in the Middle East. A lot of what happens now in research centers and universities in the Middle East is traditional science, a single investigator working on a problem, perhaps with a student or two. The trend now is to go to big science, large teams of scientists distributed all over the world, collaborating together. This couldn't be done without very significant and powerful cyber infrastructure.
Now, in terms of your own efforts and how you see, what role do you see the Middle East playing in collaborating with some of the efforts ongoing in the US, for example? Do you see scientists and researchers in your Discovery Park reaching out to this region, or vice versa?
In fact, there are some international collaborations. I'm not aware of all of them, but using this interconnectivity, this where distances are not there anymore, scientists, doesn't matter where you're located anymore. Literally, scientists collaborate across the world as if they're sitting together in the same lab. I mean, this is a tremendous time that we live in today. So there are some attempts at collaborations with the, say for example, the Qatar Foundation has some initiatives to collaborate with expat scientists. The UAE has several examples and success stories. KAUST has a major, in the Arabiya Saudiya, they have a major initiative to try to jumpstart research through international collaborations with various institutions. So,
Ahmed, on this point, do you believe that it is critical for the region to successfully establish these kinds of collaborative, innovative ecosystems to make the next technology leap for this big science, as you said earlier?
Absolutely, absolutely. I just think that if we look at the trends now in Europe, for the last, with the European projects, in the US, if we look at the funding trends that the National Science Foundation has, 10 years ago, the majority of the funding went to single investigator projects. Now, more than 60% of the funding goes to large teams of researchers. This is absolutely a trend. I think that it has to be followed. And for the simple reason, research is ever more complex now, and it is ever more interdisciplinary. So I work in, I'm a computer scientist by training, and I'm a database, in fact, a specialist. However, most of the work that I do on a daily basis happens with biologists, with chemical engineers, with biochemists, with social scientists. I mean, where we thought years ago of the excitement of research happening at each of our individual core competencies, I believe the exciting work is happening at the periphery these days. That is at the interaction among different disciplines. Yeah. And it's just the energy and the excitement is amazing. I just feel lucky every day that I show up to work and I get paid to do something that I love so much.
Now, that's a wonderful feeling. I think if we can get the excitement from the interaction that you described, very rich indeed. We'll come back and explore some of those elements of collaborative systems as time permits in the session. Chey, I would like to come to you. Korea is recognized by many as clearly a country that has successfully enabled a great technology leap inside the country and has also established a very dominant position globally in this space. So can you help us to understand what did Korea get right and what can the Middle East learn from the Korean experience?
Well, thank you. Well, 21st century look forward to building a green economy. And we have to bring a new way, new energy sources to our system. So our commitment to green economy is only way to protect ourselves from global warming and security clean air for our children. So while we still rely on current energy sources, that is a fossil fuel, from coal to petroleum, we must prepare for an uncertain future through diverse alternative energy and environment-friendly technologies. But certainly the total transition from a fossil fuel-driven economy to alternative energy-based system is not going to take next day. It will take some time. So what we need is a right balance between fossil fuel and alternative energy sources. That is a smart coexistence between what may appear to be competing industries. So while we're investing in alternative energy, we also have to continuously find and protect existing petroleum industry by turning fossil fuel to become more environment friendly. So overall, the Middle Eastern country, whose economy is heavily dependent on oil export, must put their effort to diversify industry portfolio and investing into environment-friendly technologies. And this is the only way to protect the market and further strengthening the usage and demand of petroleum throughout the world. So those countries are heavily dependent on oil import, like us, like China, Japan, Korea, should also pioneer of alternative energy. They are very, such as solar power, biomass, the geothermal, wind power, you name it, And they are very region-specific. But together with the oil-producing economies, I think we can explore possibilities in new technologies. So this commitment requires a lot of efforts from all sectors, cooperation from different countries, from government to business enterprises and academic institutions, perhaps the private citizens. But we all have to come out with and share the experience, knowledge, wisdom, and even strengths to make our future a step brighter than today.
Now, clearly, I think you've articulated a very appropriate ambitions for the future for this region, and there's a lot of discussion we'll have around the energy topic in a few minutes. Are there any specific lessons that you think we could learn from Korea's successful past?
Well, let me be, rather than talking about the Korea in general, because Korea tend to, study themselves within, R&D usually remains within Korea, but we have some different experience that I can share. few years ago, we tried to develop the lithium-ion polymer battery, but we had a R&D lab in Korea, but the progress was very slow. But then we have a satellite R&D center in New Jersey, which has a totally different area. But we were very good at coating technology, which is a key technology to this battery, making battery. And US has a very strong in material technology. So we've combined these two together. And the outcome was we shortened the development time in less than half, and with maybe one-fourth of the budget compared to our competitor. So there's the education is different, their system is different, industry structure is different, raw material is different. You talk about all the different environment together. So you put two R&D centers together in two different geographic locations. I think there's a good synergy effect rather than just simple duplication.
Thank you very much. Willem, I come to you now, and you have a very global perspective. In fact, the title is a very impressive one, Chief Globalization Officer. And how do you see the Middle East fitting in the world as we look forward?
Thanks, Sumitra. So first, a couple of observations. First, that technology is not a goal in itself. We've already said it's an enabler. It's an equalizer. It's an equalizer for education and other things. If you think about the future, that from a technology point of view, the future is bright. That technology is only going to be more fun, more easy. That if you think about the future of computing, it's about cloud computing, it's about any application, anywhere, anytime, any moment. If you think about the future of the internet, things are going to be cheaper, more available, more bandwidth. Video will be pervasive, you can communicate. You can talk about the future of work, becoming more collaborative, the future of connected life. We talk about societies, about communities. And now you come to, I think, a very interesting point, because these are things that children are doing. We are often the problem as adults. That we knew how to do it and we lost it. And so if you then look at it, where could the Middle East differentiate? That if you would envision 3-5 years out, what is an industry that you say the innovation came out of the Middle East? What is the biggest unmet need in the Middle East? Are 200 million young people who have to be educated, for who we have to create jobs. We have to support them, we have to help them. I think there is a fantastic opportunity in the Middle East to start developing software, to create communities, to get not children trained and young adults, but also give them microfinancing, give them mentoring, give them coaching, basically create platforms and start a software industry. What you also need, I think, in an innovative environment, why was Silicon Valley so successful? It was an ecosystem, it was a cluster. You had venture capitalists, you had unmet needs, you had universities, you had good restaurants, you had some fun. And so also in the Middle East, how can you create these type of clusters where that all comes together and where you get that passion? What I know, what I've learned as Chief Globalization Officer, I moved to India 2 years ago. And one of the best examples I can give also about cell phone telephony, there are very poor fishermen in Chennai. And they go out fishing every night in a small rowing boat. They catch fish and they come back. When they gave them cell phones, in the middle of the night, they phoned the different villages what the price of fish is. And suddenly they're entrepreneurs. And so the point I try to make is that it's making a differentiation, how to go from a user to a creator in the Middle East. Think about the unmet needs. 200 million young people with one language. Where is the content? Why hasn't that been created? Create these clusters, science parks, get people together, get that energy going. There is a huge unmet need, a huge market. I'm sure that in 5 years, the Middle East could be known to be the creator of, and I would say, and call it a platform for training, collaboration, and job creation.
Well, I think that's a very attractive future to look forward to, and clearly I subscribe to the image that technology can be a lot of fun, can create a bright future for all of us. But we have had now about 3 or 4 viewpoints around this ICT or technology and information technology in general. Is this a domain on which you think the Middle East can bet on for the future? Because the topic of today's discussion really is, what new technological frontier should the Middle East bet on? Is it ICT? Is it education? Is it some other combination? What's your view?
Sumitra, I would say, there is no choice. It's the only way to go. 200 million young people who have to be educated, who have to find jobs, who have to be supported from a mentoring point of view. ICT is the platform for that. And we are often the obstacle, as elderly people. And that's because we don't know how to do that. If I see how my kids use ICT, I can learn from them. The point I try to make is that we also have to create the environment. We have had some great experiments here in Jordan on education. To give you a couple of statistics, we have Cisco academies here. We have the highest penetration, the highest rate of people who also find a job after it. 40% of students are females. We have statistics that are better in the rest of the world. What I know as Chief Globalization Officer and what a fact is that the US is aging. Europe is already shrinking. So for the Middle East, with a population that is getting younger and younger, it's a fantastic opportunity. And use the technology.
So no debates on the need to involve the young and educate the young. Let me just ask you one question, and a very short answer to that is, how important do you think it is to innovate in the leading edge technology as compared to applying technology in the right context, the right value?
That it's a very dull answer. I think it goes all together. It is providing schools with technology. Let them use it, experiment, get a culture of that it's allowed to make some failures. What did you learn from it? I think there is a big need for platform software in general based on technology for education, mentoring, and make it comprehensive.
Nagib?
Maybe to give credit to our moderator, maybe you can explain to the public the INSEAD, the Network Readiness Index. This is a very good index. It's an index that says in order to achieve, any results with ICT, you need to, you divided the countries and you made an index based on environment, readiness, and usage. So all these 3 parameters need to exist, and you made a chart. And the chart, of course, and as usual, Israel comes first. We and Egypt come last. We compete with Syria on the last position. Jordan is lucky, is in the middle. And actually, to my credit of my Emirati friend here, he comes second. So the point of that chart is, unless we create the right environment, unless there is a readiness to move on, and unless the usage is there, all this is just will remain talk.
Now, thank you for mentioning this, and I think I should just highlight one point is that every year with the World Economic Forum, we produce the Global Information Technology Report, and now after having 9 years of data, we are actually able to compare and see which countries, which regions have improved the most over the last 8-9 years. And the region that stands out as having made the highest improvement in technology readiness is the Middle East, and stands out by far as compared to any other regions. Relatively, the biggest leaps have been made in this region. That's very important for, I think, all of us to be aware of. So we'll come back, and thank you very much for pointing it out and for your response. And let's sort of use the segue provided by Chey into energy and the role of energy in the future. And clearly, energy is a very important domain of technology, a domain of business and GDP for this region, or at least many countries in the region. And maybe it'd be useful to get a sense of how does the energy debate, technology, investment, energy, play out in the future? Maybe Karim, do you want to begin?
Thank you, Sumitra. One, and perhaps, of course, I can also link both. 10 years ago, we were here at the Dead Sea, convened by His Majesty King Abdullah, who said it's not good enough just to read and write. I want Jordanians to Google. And this has been a driving force in Jordan. Jordan boasts one of the highest literacy rates, but also in terms of bringing technology to education. We've had great success in transforming our education system from a teaching-based system to a learning-based system. And we see the impact today. Many of the Jordanian participants here come from a technology background, and we have seen great results over the past 10 years. I can boast, for example, about one example that I know too well. Iris Guard is a company, for example, that has developed disruptive technology in introducing iris recognition that's today being used in banks where you can withdraw cash with the blink of an eye, without a card, without a PIN. And this is technology that's coming from the Arab world. We have a local bank that has used this before any other bank in the rest of the world. So we have made some huge achievements. And if we look at wireless technology, we have Naguib, who is certainly the pioneer in this area. He has provided universal access to communication through one, I think, the biggest advantage when we talk about leaping in technology is that you're not held back by legacy systems. So the advantage that the Arab world and the MENA region can take advantage of is that we have not made the huge investments in the legacy systems that anchor us down and that stop us from moving forward. So we are able to take those giant leaps in moving forward. And if we take the same model in wireless communications to renewable energy, for example, if we take a satellite night image of Earth, you will see where there are lights. So the United States, of course, is well lit in its population centers, and you can see how it's connected. And you look at our region, and you will see it's not as brightly lit. Of course, some look at that and say, well, we're being conservationists in saying and not emitting as many CO2s as those well lit up regions. But if we look at renewable energy, then you can provide rural access to electricity through renewable means, and that can transform communities as well. So those communities can have their own windmills, they can have their own solar electricity generation farms, and they can be independent. And I think once you bring electricity to those areas, then you're able to also bring the technology and to transform those communities. Certainly we don't want to lose our traditions and to lose our heritage, but you can easily combine both. And this is where, a day before the WEF, we announced here the EDAMA initiative, which is our blueprint for a green economy for Jordan that hopefully we can replicate and share with other countries in the region. But I'm very optimistic that using renewable energy, especially for a country such as Jordan, where we import 96% of our energy is imported, and we are the fourth poorest country in our water resources. So for us, it's not a matter of luxury. It's a question of necessity. The future of Jordan depends on renewable energy.
Now, I think necessity is always a great mother of invention. So the question to you would be, in this region, which is in some sense very energy dependent and sometimes in many countries energy rich too, at least traditional energy, how do you think this region should look at energy as a technology area to invest in for the future? Is this something on which the region should lead the world?
Definitely, the region should not take its natural resources for granted. Those are depleting resources that we cannot count on forever. And I believe this is the region that has been blessed, in addition to having oil and having good radiation from the sun, in some areas good wind. And I think that's where we need to invest. And as my colleagues have said, not just in importing that technology, but also considering how this technology can be developed here. I believe there is huge potential for innovation in bringing technology and testing it that works in some of the hottest areas. And today there are interesting propositions, for example, from the Union for the Mediterranean, where energy can be generated in the southern Mediterranean countries and exported to the northern Mediterranean countries. And I think that sort of cooperation as well can move the whole region into a new direction.
Thank you very much. And Peter, thank you very much for being so patient. I'm coming to you last, but it's a very important topic area. And, you know, my school, INSEAD, has a center in Abu Dhabi, which we're very proud of, so very much part of the region. And in Abu Dhabi, we're also very well aware that Abu Dhabi has invested very strongly in Masdar and the whole effort around trying to create a leading edge example of research in this area. From the outside, how do you see the efforts of this region to really create the leading edge knowledge and investments in this area?
Well, let me start by saying that I certainly agree that human capital and energy are two main pillars in every society. And one can just consider how it would go forward if you don't have a strong strategy on both components. So I think that is a good starting point. You're well aware that the wind power industry has grown immensely over many years, 27 as an average for the last 5 years. Last year, we were the fastest growing power technology, both in the EU and in the United States as well. So wind power technology, renewables, is a factor in the energy sector these days. The reasons for that development is, of course, macro drivers like energy security, climate change, and here lately, of course, the technology capacity of local job creation or green jobs, if you wish. Turning to your question and the Middle East, certainly this is not a technology that has been applied vigorously in this region. I think actually there's only 400 megawatt up and running, mainly in Egypt and a few megawatt here in Jordan. But certainly there's a great potential here as we go forward. These 400 megawatt is out of 130,000 megawatt worldwide capacity in the wind sector. So the good news is that there is a great opportunity here which is ready to get explored. I would say that the reason why I'm optimistic is, of course, that the drivers that apply in this industry also applies for this region here. And there are strong issues of dependency, security issues, volatility of energy prices, bearings into the economy, climate change, CSR, or just the fact, as just described by my Jordanian colleague, to have a fixed price for electricity the next 20 years, which is the lifetime of a turbine. So in other words, this is also a good way to hedge future electricity prices. So coming back to your question, why or what role for this region here? I think it's absolutely natural with the Middle East being the player in energy, in fossil fuels, to be looking into what we in our company called modern energy. And you mentioned Masdar, famous, a proud company, is now looking into this industry with investments both in manufacturers like my company, but also in early stage technologies like offshore and wind parks. So I think this is the future, and certainly it would be very interesting to see more interest from this region into this strong growing sector and industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to involve the audience, involve you in the panel. So if you have any questions, please to raise your hand. I already see several questions out here. And maybe the gentleman at the corner, I have one request. Please keep the questions short because with several questions and we've got a big panel, limited time. And please introduce yourself very briefly.
I'm Ahmed Latifi. I'm from Egypt, actually. I heard a lot from the panel, actually, but I have a comment here. Actually, I think that there is a very important issue that is a trend in the world, and it's related to the mobile. It's building the ubiquitous ecosystem. And what's Korea doing now is they're building a very intelligent strategy, actually, to build this ubiquitous system, actually. And this is how they are basing part of their technology and science development in the future. In the next 5-10 years, this region is going to invest in building telecommunications infrastructure, I believe, to bring it to world level in excess of $200 billion. And this industry is currently generating in the region around $60 billion a year worth of revenues. We would like to see, actually, a very articulated strategy in this region where we can benefit actually and channel part of the money we are going to invest into the infrastructure in developing technologies and industries, as well as usage patterns that would affect the quality of life of people.
Thank you very much. We get the message. Thank you very much. I'll take that as a comment. And up front out here, I have a little harder time seeing hands back there, so please do be patient if I miss a hand and behind, please. Gentlemen out here.
This is a question particularly for Mr. Kawar. What consideration have you given to nuclear power for Jordan? The reason for this question is that the evidence around some of the technologies you talk about, windmills, much of the solar technology, suggests that it is environmentally harming at worst, and at best produces very little electricity, whereas nuclear is the most efficient and the cleanest form of electricity delivery.
Okay.
Jordan's policy is to diversify its energy sources. And certainly we do have a nuclear program for civil electricity that is underway. We have established the Jordan Atomic Energy Commission that oversees this program. Of course, this is a longer-term program. It takes more to set it up, but actually Jordan's approach is to hopefully develop a model that if you want to use nuclear energy and to use it peacefully, then you can do it with all the right agreements, with all the right partners, so that it is safe, it's used for the right purposes, and it can be a model that would be adopted by other countries. But certainly that's something that is being considered, but it would not be just the sole source. We still have to focus also on clean energy sources and renewable sources, including wind and solar.
If I also may pick on your question here, well, I think it would be good if you could go and visit Germany and Spain and maybe even Denmark, United States or China, because these are four, five countries who have been looking into wind power vigorously. Both in Spain and Germany, it's 10% of their electricity generation and 20% in the small country of Denmark. Still not many percent in China and United States, but growing. This is not about one technology. It's not about picking a winner or silver bullet solution. This is about providing an energy mix, which is a right with a new fit for the future. And certainly it would be not very clever to choose just one option here, but it's a mix of technologies.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please. Just introduce yourself very briefly also.
Sachin Dogal, Chief Executive and President of a company called Nivea that looks at cloud computing. So you've talked about leapfrogging forward, but a lot of what's been discussed is just adopting what's been done else in the world. Is there going to be real innovation being fostered in the MENA region for the MENA region to really leapfrog ahead, or is it just going to be a copy and modify tactic?
If I can give it a shot, Sumitra, that again, first, there are a lot of unmet needs. Educational programs, software, cloud computing, using technology to address education and job creation for 200 million people has not been done at that scale. And so if that would energize, I would say, a cluster of industries together to do it comprehensively, I would call that an act of innovation that we haven't seen around the world. And I'm absolutely sure that the rest of the world will not even do it. Because, like I said, the US is aging and the population in Europe is already shrinking. And so it's a unique opportunity to differentiate out of MENA.
I want to pick up on this point briefly. So it is a lot easier to import technology rather than to create technology. There is, not as a criticism, but there is a certain lack of risk-taking in our region. And unless this mindset changes and there is more risk-taking, more capital invested in new technologies. We're not going to go into that direction. So so you can do several things. You can follow. You can sort of say that, boy, everybody is doing nanotechnology these days. Everybody's doing biotech. Well, let's invest $100 million and go into nanotechnology. Or you could say that we have certain social needs. We have healthcare issues. Sustainability was mentioned as a mission critical application. This could drive innovation. Could also say we could innovate in cyber infrastructure, as to the examples that I mentioned. That's what we do in my center at Purdue University. And there's also this whole issue of this fiber that Williem was talking about. There's a lot of open source technologies that are available where you could build a value add. So there's a lot of ways to innovate. There are some ways to innovate that don't require a lot of investments. You build on top of things like Hadoop and HDFS and so on. These are open source technologies you can build on. Crowdsourcing. There are a lot of things that are pertinent to the needs that are short term that could be done. So I agree with you, and there's got to be more risk taken in order to go there.
Nagib?
No, I think it's not true to say that there is no braveness or innovation. I mean, the project in the Emirates of Masdar, the city with the carbon monoxide free city, is the first project of a kind in the whole world. And actually, the problem there is that the technology and the research in that area has to be really developed and implied. So they have done a leapfrog. They have shown that they're brave. They're putting the funding from this. And this is going to be the first place in the whole world. So it's not true that the area doesn't provide examples with a lot of courage and innovation, you know.
Karim?
Sumitra, if I may add, I think today when we look at the region, the internet has become an equalizer of sorts because it provides access to information. So whether you are in Jordan or whether you are in San Francisco, you have access to the same websites and access to patents. So in terms of innovation and creativity, I would invite those to research what's out there, because unfortunately there's a lot of effort that we see, especially with young people, that goes into reinventing something that already exists, which is wasted effort. We have seen, of course, a lot of localization, but what we need is take innovation that is out there, but add some novelty to it. What can you contribute more that hasn't been done? And I think looking at the context here, one point perhaps that hasn't been touched on, this region has suffered from brain drain over the years. And I think here we have an opportunity to reverse that, to make it into a brain gain. Can we create opportunities in this part of the world where we can attract the talent that has left, that is eager to come back, provided that there is the right opportunity, and that can, coupled with the financing that's available here and the appetite for innovation, that can create many opportunities and can provide some breakthrough technology as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that question certainly generated a lot of, I think, very useful responses. Can we get the microphone to the lady in front, please?
Thank you. I would like to congratulate all the panelists for very thought-provoking presentations. My name is Christy Lee. I'm a managing director from Uri Investment Korea. I just have a brief comment about the question you raised earlier about what the Middle East can learn from Korea. Actually, Korean parents take education very seriously. They are happy to invest more than half of their income into their kids' education. And when they choose homes, they would choose not based on the commute distance, but based on the school district. So they take education very seriously, and they are willing to make a lot of sacrifices and investment. And just from my personal experience, actually, I have a daughter who spent 4 years in the US from age 1. And when she came to Korea, I had to take her to a English preschool in Korea, and she was asked to take a placement test there. And after the test, I was really shocked to hear the result, because the teacher told me she didn't make it because her reading and writing in English does not meet our standard in Korea. And all of a sudden, I see this sign on the wall of the preschool in Korea saying, let's read 1,000 English storybooks before we reach grade 1. So that's how tough and that's how serious Korea is when it comes to education. Thank you.
Yeah, talk about ambition. So,
You must have lived in California.
now I guess you have seen the results of the OECD PISA studies in which they evaluate the math and science scores of students in high school across the world. It's very impressive to see the results and different results, and certainly the US doesn't necessarily score very highly in that. What is true in the US, and I say this having been a product of the US high system myself, is that tertiary education universities are by far the best in the world today. And there are very good reasons why that is the case. I saw a hand earlier out there. Yes, please. And I saw another hand. Okay, I'll come to the two behind, please. Gentlemen over there, please. Just keep the microphone ready. Yes, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hi, I'm Ghaith Saqr from Arab Crunch.
We can't hear you very well.
I'm Ghaith Saqr from Arab Crunch from Jordan. I have one question. Any R&D, pan-regional R&D funds going on or planned or anything like that? Especially R&D inside universities. Thank you.
Do you want to? Karim?
I believe that there are several R&D funds being established. As you might be aware, there has been here the Petra conference, the meeting of the Nobel laureates, and they have committed together with the King Abdullah Fund for Development to establish a regional MENA-wide R&D fund to support innovation and creativity.
There is a fund in UAE. There is a fund also for Pan-Arab research. And I'll be happy to connect you with them.
So there are several of these efforts in UAE, in Qatar, for example. I'm sure there's some other ones also. Fairly sizable too.
There's another question behind there, please. Yes.
There were some comments which were made by the panel on energy technologies, and I think perhaps the energy technology framework needs to be a lot more robust. By the way, my name is Afzal Chaudhry. I'm from Aramco in Saudi Arabia. We sometimes shy away from the fact that fossil fuels are going to be with us, and 80–85% of them are going to supply the world's energy needs by even 2030. So if we want the environment to be clean, let's make them clean. We have a lot of oil and gas in the region. We'll be the last one to turn off the lights on them. So we need to find more. We still leave 2/3 of what we find in the ground in terms of oil. Work on oil, gas, coal, find more, recover more, but emit less. So that's one dimension. The second dimension is we have very favorable geology. That's our biggest strength. What other strength do we have? Wide open spaces of desert and a lot of sunshine. So the second dimension could be solar. We have some very remote locations. Wind can go there. So that's renewable can help. A question was asked about nuclear. 10–15 years, we should acknowledge that realistically it's not possible to do nuclear. Nuclear is going to be long term if it comes. So I suggest the panel consider 3 dimensions. Fossil fuels and their related R&D, and a lot can be done on them. Solar and wind, because we have potential for that, and nuclear for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any reactions?
Well, I just want to comment that I'm from the oil-consuming country. I think oil-producing country and oil-consuming country like Korea, we consume about we're the 7th largest oil consumption country in the world. We're in the same boat. So when there's a new forms of energy comes out, we have to change our industry structure too. So I talked about the joint R&D force with the oil-consuming industry, like in a country like Korea and Middle East, because we need to protect petroleum industry. But then we need to see another opportunity on the growing sector, which is alternative energy sources. And to protect it, I think we need to invest our money to develop more environment-friendly technologies. I think that's going to be one of the major growth engines. So protecting the current industry, and also we have to accept it. I mean, there's a new source of new forms of energy coming out. So that's another opportunity. So I would think that this is more like an opportunity for all of us rather than a threat.
Karim?
I think one area that we haven't touched on, which is carbon capture and storage. This is still nascent, but it's very promising, and I think that can offer also an option for the carbon-emitting sources to invest in carbon capture and storage.
Talking energy.
So all of this points to more research. Carbon sequestration was just one more.
Certainly. I mean, more research so we can get even more smart technologies into the equation. But I just want to pick on the remark made by the Saudi Arabian colleague on the need for regulators to get into this debate, providing the transparency and the guidance also on these areas here. And here we need some maybe brave decisions by regulators and politicians also in this region to make it possible and to facilitate this technology shift and to facilitate the investments that are needed in research and development and other areas. Energy is a lot about regulation, as we know, and if it isn't coming, these changes, these decisions, these investments will not be coming.
But I think the point you made about investments in fossil fuels and in trying to innovate in the space is an important one for us to keep in mind. Yes, please, gentlemen over there.
Thank you.
It's okay. It'll come on, yeah.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm the managing partner for Catalyst Private Equity. We're a Middle East region energy and water technology investment fund, venture capital fund, operating out of Jordan. I'm from Jordan. I previously spent nine years in the IT sector where Cisco invested in our company, Etisalat Solutions. I was a co-founder of it. So after these 9 years, I came to a conclusion that yes, IT is great. We can innovate. We can be a great user. But at the end of the day, where does this region have a global competitive edge? This region is 5% of the world. Sector by sector, we're only 5%, 6% globally. We're irrelevant. But in 3 sectors, we're one of the biggest global markets for technology. One of them is oil and gas. We're number 2 globally as a user and buyer of oil and gas technology. That's why we're focused on that sector now. Number 2, water desalination. 60% of the world's desalination in the entire world is happening in this region. We're absolutely dependent on it. We're the biggest buyer of desal technology globally. And number 3, future industry, solar energy. We have the highest solar concentration. We will be in the future the biggest applier, I expect, of solar energy because it's more efficient here. So I would suggest that we take a more strategic view on being bold. We haven't been bold. Israel, population about 10 million, 7 million, has the GDP of Saudi Arabia, okay? Mostly on technology exports. Are we being bold? Not really. We're not even moving the needle in what we can do and what we should be able to do in building innovation in the sectors that are strategic for the region, energy and water. We've been bold We've been bold in pockets. We need to be bold much more. We need
okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your comments. I think the point of being bold is very important, and I think we'll come back to that perhaps in our discussions, but I just want to take a few more questions. There was a hand in the middle somewhere over there I saw. Yes, please. Gentleman behind out there in the...
he just touched, my name is Jihad Ayush, I'm part of the student delegation, and he just touched on the point I wanted to raise. This is a very unique time in my point of view as we notice that new technologies are developing. We're changing our economy from an economy based on fossil fuel technology to an economy based on smart technology, based on green technology. We see it was a wonderful conversation here where we talked about new technology and developing research and all that, but we see in certain areas, for instance in China, their need is mobility and all that. They're investing heavily in electric cars, they're taking the edge in there. What are the specific areas, and I guess he just answered my question, that we could actually address, that we could basically take the leap? I guess water, that would be a good idea, but what, in your view, is our needs? And because if you have a need, then
okay, I think we get the question. Thank you very much. We get the question. Do you want to combine these two things? Because I think that both points are very important. One, the question is, are those three areas which outline the ones where the Middle East can hope to be bold and move forward, or are there other areas also we should consider? What's your view on that? Maybe I'll take some views from perhaps from you, Peter. You want to go first?
I think we are living in a very challenging time, and I think one of the experiences is that the ones who are having a very consolidated strategy will be the ones who will be winning as we go forward, of course, provided that you are picking the right strategy. But not having a strategy is actually the only thing you should not be opting for. So it's very important to have that discussion in society, in this region here. And I just want to repeat my point in my intervention, my 2 minutes before. This region is very strong on energy. This region should use this as a strong platform for the new energies, meaning take bold decisions, encourage investments, be part of what is going out there, because as you understand, there are some people who believe here in what they call the new energy economy. This is the reference to the Biden-Obama energy economy plan. Certainly this is going to create new opportunities for the ones who might not be the first movers, but certainly should not be the last movers. Thank you.
Short responses because we are running out of time. Please, Karim.
Sumitra, I think one area that also requires a lot of investment is efficiency. And if we look at Europe, for example, they've collectively agreed that by the year 2020, they will reduce their emissions by 20%, they will enhance efficiency by 20%, and they will reach 20% of their energy from renewable sources. We cannot look at the environment just from one single country's point of view. It has to have a regional approach. And I think here, this would be the opportunity for the Arab world to collectively agree on such policies and to focus on efficiencies where we can have major achievement.
Would that be an example of a bold decision that you would recommend?
Certainly.
Okay. Willem?
Yeah, if you really think bold, and I heard an entrepreneur who already has gone through that cycle once. I think an untapped opportunity also for the next decade is what we call the industrialization of the internet. And what we have seen so far has been very virtual around computing, connecting mobile phones with computers, with the internet. What you now start seeing over the next 10 years, and I think MENA can also lead that with urbanization strategies, is that everything will be connected. Smart devices in oil production, in transport, start building different scenarios based upon information. And so when there is a software type of industry and you want to think bold, think about analytics. Start thinking about the opportunities that everything will be connected, that we will get smart cities, smart connected cities, that we will get smart connected transport. We haven't talked about smart grid in relation to energy, metering at home. That's an emerging industry that I think will give high returns for the next 10, 20 years. So entrepreneurs, unified yourself, and again, try to create these clusters of SMB business, research, of course, attract some big companies. But I think there is a big market emerging in MENA, as there is not so much legislation yet, as there is not a big install base. You could leapfrog, and that could be classified as real bold moves.
Just to come to our two colleagues from the region itself, Mohammad and Naguib, what do you think would be, in your view, from your perspective, bold decisions that the region could make, either the government, the private sector, collectively? In your view, what would be examples of bold decisions?
Several people talked about the research and about what research we need for the region. And definitely there are many areas, but as I mentioned earlier, the recommendation that the government, but the government not alone, the government and the other stakeholders should participate together in providing the right mechanism for moving forward. I think the gentleman from Aramco talked about several areas where we need to focus on, but they are not the only one. There are much more things. In the agriculture, in the food, our region, the Arab countries still import food from all over the world, while we have a lot of areas where we can use in order to develop more food for us, and whether in Sudan or whether in the large desert when there is enough water. So there are a lot of areas where we need to work. But looking at what is needed, what I talked about earlier in the beginning, that we need to enable the society to move forward. And with that one, I talked about that there is the need to have the right communication tool for the universities, for education in order to move forward. That is the basis. That one, I think several telecom operators are working on that one, but they cannot do everything on their own. They should be able to work. I think every country, they have ICT fund or universal service fund or so. I'm not very sure what they are using it for. If they put part of it in such research, I am sure that the region will develop further in a much better way.
A bold decision would be, for example, the democratization in the Middle East. This would be a bold decision, because if you allow for democracy, then all the problems most probably will be resolved, because you will have the good guys, the clever guys, come out finally out of the grove and decide what is best. You know, for example, opening up the education, not being protectionist about education. I mean, I'm a graduate of a German school out of Egypt. The 200 people who graduate from this school every year are all of them today in my society in leading positions. So imagine if we would subcontract our educational system to the Germans. How would Egypt look like? So this one needs a bold. This is being bold, you know. So if you want to be bold, just start with the basics. You know, let's have democracy, and then we're bold, and then everything would be resolved. You know.
Well, that certainly is an innovative suggestion. Okay, we'll take one last question. Gentleman in front, please, out here.
Hello, my name is Riccardo Monti from Value Partners. I have a question for Professor Dutta. In the list of the top 100 universities in the world, there's not even one from the region. We know that the Emirates has been a very bold country. The kind of challenges, the United Arab Emirates have faced in the past are amazing. So why not trying to be very bold and try to put a fraction of the investment in a massive infrastructure and building in to create one of the best research and university in the world in one of the segments that we mentioned, like solar power and even ICT or desalinization. My question to you, as part of one of the best universities in the world, what do you think it would take to have a leading university, world-class leading university in the region?
Well, as a moderator, normally I would refrain from giving my own views, but I'm happy to give them if I'm asked. But perhaps I'll give the floor to Ahmed, because from your perspective, what do you think would it take to create, and I'll be happy to add mine, which I have plenty. So what's required and what's missing out here?
Mohammad or myself?
Sorry, Ahmed.
Yeah. So unfortunately, you need a total revamp, total change of the system. I don't know where to start. You need a totally new pedagogy models. You need some type of an academic freedom that does not exist in the Middle East. We have a 10-year system in the US that is sacrosanct and that allows me to research and work on whatever I feel is significant and is important. So there are a lot of drivers that come together. There are some attempts here, and let's face it, when it comes to education, when it comes to basic research, it could not be bought, and it takes a long time to do. So you have to be patient. It's not something where you could invest like telecom or what have you and bring in this. I just want to, perhaps this will be the last comment I get to say, doesn't matter what area you choose, whether it is energy, environment, And some of us, for example, in the Discovery Park, we have a center for the environment and a center for energy that we've decided now to combine together and create a center for sustainability. There are just a lot of these things that you do. It doesn't matter what area, you need a state-of-the-art computing infrastructure, one. Two, you need very skilled computer and information sort of in this IT domain. You need a very skilled labor force. It doesn't matter what the other area that you pick. These are basic, fundamental things that have to be done.
Well, just to add to what Ahmed said, I'm part of many panels and working groups, even looking at the issue of why doesn't Europe have more top-class universities in the top 20? And at the heart of it, it comes down to one key word, which is governance. And the whole idea really is creating universities that have the freedom to compete, that have the freedom to be able to set rules so as to be able to attract the best students, to be able to attract the best faculty and provide the most conducive environments to do research and innovative pedagogy. I know it is much more complex than that, and there are many other factors. We can have a longer discussion about it. But if I had to single out one key element, the one key element is governance. And at least if what you look at universities in Europe, which I know very well, most universities are essentially public universities. Most faculty members are nothing wrong about it, but in essentially civil servants, and very little incentive to compete, to do things differently, and to innovate for funds. You go to the US, and most universities are competing. There's a lot of freedom, a lot of voice of the alumni and the governance, and a variety of different factors out there. Now, we could have gone on for much longer on this topic, and clearly, I came to this panel, and I shared my challenges that I felt when asked to moderate the panel with the panel members at the start about how to move forward. So we have heard a number of issues and a number of common, let's say, challenges in this domain. And I must say that I feel happy that we have achieved at least some small step in that direction about how to move forward. And I will not even try to summarize, the panel discussion, which was very far too rich. But if I had to just highlight a few points that came, I think, at least for me, as important messages, I think the last point that was mentioned about being bold, that is something which is fundamental, which goes very much in alignment with the goals of the session. If you want to leapfrog, if you want to make the next leap, if you want to somehow shape the future, if you want to lead, not just follow, you have to be bold. And of course, being bold in what? And I think the point was also made by our panel members that, which is also important to realize, it is not just about creating the best and the leading edge technology. The examples that were given, many of them, were about smart application of technology in society in the local context. So what is very critical is when we think about innovation, it is not technology for the sake of technology, but it's much more to be able to apply the right technology smartly in the local context. And the local context is very different in every part of the world, especially in this part of the world. And of course, here we have our own local culture, values, and technology has to respect that. So we have to be able to have a good alignment of the two out there. I was struck by the degree of importance of education in the discussion. I did expect it to come up, so I must be very honest. I was expecting education to be one of the themes, but I did not certainly plan for the strong focus on education that was given by almost all the panel members. And I think that has a message for us. It has a message for us because what it means is we have to think seriously about education reform, both at the K-12 and at the university level. Now, this is a topic which was discussed in other sort of meetings and other panels in this meeting also, but I strongly suggest you, especially leaders in this region, to look at this topic very carefully, because there will be strong resistance, but certainly the example from Korea, where there's a very strong focus culturally on education, parents willing to sacrifice the future, can serve as a good role model out here. Another message which came out to me was technology can be a big enabler of transformation. And I think there were examples given of how communities were transformed because technology was applied correctly in those communities. Also interesting for me was the fact that we have certain clear domains where we can innovate, and some sectors were mentioned already, and let's just look at how we can really have the right level of ambition to create innovation in the areas where we already have strengths. This is, by the way, quite similar to what the European Union has adopted right now in terms of creating lead markets or lead technologies where Europe aims to compete and be the best in the world. It knows it cannot be the best in the world in everything. It has chosen a few select areas where it wants to be the best in the world. So I'm sure you took a few other points for yourself, and I hope you got a lot of value from the discussion. I'm going to request you to thank the panel members in a second, but just want to tell you that we have another very important session, very brief session after this, which is the award to the social entrepreneurs in the Middle East. So I request you to be seated after we thank the panel members, and then we'll carry on the next part of the discussion. So please join me in thanking the panel members for the wonderful discussion. Now, at this point, it's my unique pleasure to invite Mrs. Schwab to the stage. Mrs. Schwab is the chairperson and co-founder of the Schwab Foundation Social Entrepreneurship, and she will announce the Social Entrepreneur Awards in the Middle East for this year.
Thank you, Professor Tuta. It was a fascinating panel. I'm glad for this opportunity to introduce another aspect of innovation to you, the one driven by social entrepreneurs. These social innovators pursue poverty alleviation and environmental goals with entrepreneurial drive, with business methods and the courage to innovate and overcome traditional practices. It is about applying practical, novel, and sustainable approaches to benefit society in general. We deeply believe that economic as well as social progress can best be achieved through entrepreneurship and innovation. The World Economic Forum's and my husband's motto for over 30 years has been entrepreneurship in the global public interest. Business ultimately has to serve society. During the last decade, we have encountered many social entrepreneurs whose main or sole motivation is to create social change and to work directly to improve the fate of millions of people who otherwise would be excluded from society and the benefits of economic development. To promote these people and their new models of sustainable social change, my husband Klaus Schwab and I created the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, which in cooperation with media and other partners selects the best examples of social entrepreneurs around the world. It is now my great pleasure to present to you the two winners of our Regional Social Entrepreneur of the Year 2009 award in the Middle East. It is Naif Al-Mutawa. Would you please join me on stage? Dr. Naif Al-Mutawa is the founder of Teshkil Media Group in Kuwait. Teshkil Media Group is focused on creating new children's adventures through superheroes, the 99. Drawing upon global history, culture, and traditions, its aim is to provide positive and inspirational role models for children that are inspired by Islam, but on a global level. The 99 are superheroes from 99 countries that work together to improve the world with storylines that promote diversity, multiculturalism, personal responsibility, and personal accountability. The 99 comic books have been licensed in 8 languages with editions in the Middle East, Europe, and East Asia. A 99 Village theme park, the first of 6, recently opened in Kuwait, and the global animation project is planned for the end of 2009. Teshkil are rapidly reaching millions of children worldwide with positive messages and values for a hopeful, peaceful future. Congratulations. I would like now to ask Ziad Al-Refai, the founder of Tamwilcom Jordan, to come to the stage. Tamwilcom is the Middle East's leading microfinance organization, ranked 8th best microfinance bank worldwide. It provides credit opportunities for micro-entrepreneurs who cannot access the banking system because of a lack of collateral. It also provides business training and vocational services to the poorest communities in Jordan, families led by women and widows, through its loan offices. Through successful innovations that create sales channels for the products and services of its members, the company has continued to grow and serve clients' needs. Since its inception, it has served more than 100,000 micro-entrepreneurs with more than $75 million in loans. Congratulations. Shall we make a group picture with the winners? Wonderful.